But the character stayed with me, and when I started on the idea of Arc along the Watchtower, I renamed the French punk as an American and made him Phil's brother, Patrick. The bartender at Hub, I learned immediately, was named Phil, and he wore a flight suit with a tag that said Phil on his handsome, kind, and friendly face. I mean, he was more like an American than a Frenchman, and I took it as a great honor. Having my character there in an aviation setting, planes being my first obsession, in the 707, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to find people in France to speak French with. In Paris, it's a rare commodity. But these passengers at Hub took me under their wing and started teaching me enough Parisian slang to get along. About a week after finding Phil at the Hub, I came into the bar and asked Phil for a Cronenberg 1776, and Phil smiled and said,
"Non, Pat."
"Quoi?" I said, "What?"
I not Phil, I Pat.
And he pointed to his flight suit where, sure enough, written on the patch that should read Phil, it read Pat. I felt like my friends were playing a trick on me. They'd read the names of the characters I was working with and made a role on the American. A good one, a sort of literary practical joke. I said as much in my improving French, but he explained it's still difficult to decipher French, that he and Phil were identical twins. And he produced a photograph from the wall by the propeller that showed the two of them in their matching Hub flight suits, tossing parallel bottles of rum into the air. They sometimes got to work as runway models during the fashion season because of the strange singularity of there being two identical handsome men. And the patron met them somewhere and seized on them as another good gimmick for the bar. That and the barmaids, but that's another story. For myself, I found the coincidence uncanny. I took it as a sign. Hub became my regular bar. Sometimes Phil and Pat would tend bar together and juggle bottles in unison, and I would marvel at the mere magic of it all. Was I living in the real world or living in a book I'd written myself? I was Alex in Blunderland.
I think the beginning of the end was when the Frenchman hired a junkie right out of jail as a handyman. I remember noticing the vast tracks on his arm as he nailed some boards together for the Frenchman, who was, in his imperious French way, only trying to be nice and give the guy a second chance. It didn't hurt that he could get some work done in exchange for a place to sleep and food. Then the junkie, looking for cash, started to work for the sculptor. The sculptor had switched from ceramic to steel for a commissioned project. And around that time, a dealer friend of mine needed some large outdoor sculpture for a ridiculous Florida mansion. There was a lot of money at play, and I hooked him up, and suddenly the sculptor felt rich. I didn't realize that he was bipolar. I should have seen it coming, but I was just excited for him, and excited to be back at work and to watch him play with steel, and hoping for a 15% finder's fee. There were promises made, but promises, like everything else, can get broken.
North Node, Eve Deep. I met Eve for the first time while sitting at the Café Sancerre on the Rue d'Abbesse. There was a little punk rock hole in the wall with graffiti-strewn restroom that I took to tagging with CM3's Bon 2K three-eyed smiley face that we'd conjured up as a joke on the approaching millennium, shut down of all computers. Boink. The lights were supposed to go out. I put a lot of smiley faces on a lot of toilets in Paris. But the big draw of the Sancerre with the croissant and the bread, and they came from a bakery around the corner that was famous for quality. I mean, people would line up at dawn to get the special baguette, and arguably the best croissant in Paris, fresh from the oven. It was, however, much easier to order than Sancerre, where you could sit all morning with a coffee or a Pernod and draw the crowd and collage the photos onto the nice weave paper from the papeterie down the street, where I also processed my pictures at an exorbitant fee. I was listening to early Beatles rock and roll, something I'd never actually enjoyed much before that, to the original rock and roll versions, and also the Beatles after acid. I had one of those enormous yellow Sony Sport Walkmans, the thing that only a decade later seems so impossibly old-fashioned that it makes me question time itself, or at least the marvel of anything new. Somehow the early Beatles with their expatriate Hamburg amphetamine screams really made me smile. And Eve walked up to me with his hand out. He was a mess, disheveled, dirty clothes, black nails, wolfman hair, stubble beard, just another Paris bum, I thought. And I reached into my pocket for a few centimes, but he impatiently waved the money away and pointed to the bright yellow headphones hailing my head.
Qu'est-ce que vous écoutez? Donnez-moi.
And I pulled the headphones off my head to hear what his insane vision was saying to me, and he snatched them right out of my hands and put them on his greasy, homeless head. And he immediately smiled and began to bob and rock. And we were connected now by a wire, and the others in the cafe stared at Eve, and Eve stood naked, filthy, completely possessed by the rock and roll. And he was dancing and grunting to himself like some sort of brilliant animal. I smiled and extended my hand to the host and said, hey, I'm a new there, please, s'il vous plaît, And he waved me off and yelled in the noise of his headphone volume.
Un minute. Encore une chanson.
One more song, he said, but one song went by and then two until eventually I just let go and went back to my coffee and laughed. I mean, what was I supposed to do? And then Eve, whose name I did not even know yet, slipped out of the headphones like an animal out of a trap and disappeared down the street like a wind-blown piece of paper. Fucking crazy bum, I thought. But he sure likes music. And I wiped the headphones down in a dose of Parano on a saucer napkin. And I guess it's all insane people love music. And I thought, there for the grace of God on my Visa card go on. And then I forgot about it. Until I was seated with the songster, and he came reeling around the corner, only this time he had a friend. The friend was dressed immaculately and carrying a beautiful leather valise. And he crossed the street and made a beeline right for me. And the yellow headphones, and he grabbed and he babbled to me in French. What? I said, what? And I managed to figure out that he was saying, thank God you're here, I need your headphones again. And I handed him the headphones, with the Walkman still in my pocket. No.
No, the whole machine.
And reluctantly, I pulled the yellow beast from my pocket. Eve cracked open the machine and handed me back the Beatles and grabbed the tape from the well-dressed man and shoved it into the machine, pressed play, and disappeared into whatever it was he was listening to, leaving me with a now embarrassed, well-dressed man. He smiled to me.
You know Eve?
Yeah, not so well. I didn't even know he knows his name.
It's Eve.
Yeah, I figured that out.
It's okay, he listen.
Yeah, as long as you didn't have those fucking headphones.
No problem.
And so I went back to my breakfast and watched Eve listen for about a half an hour. And I cracked open the machine and took his tape and his mysterious friend and disappeared into the chaos of another Montmartre morning. And the next time I saw Eve, he was, as the French say, Eve, which means drunk. It was the evening when he came careening around the corner. I said hello to him and he thanked me for letting him hear the music. And I offered him a seat and a cigarette and a drink, and he refused.
I don't need you doing anything. I want to show you something about this town, and then I want to listen to the Beatles.
In a ditch of the wind, on red wine or Parano myself, I figured I'd follow this madman to the meandering wine-night streets.